All right.
I think we are live.
Whoop, whoop.
We're sipping the tea. Joelle got her tea.
Yes. I've been running around all day, so I just needed to like get a cup of tea, relax before this conversation.
Yes, yes. Settle in, settle in. She has her tea. I have my mummy's sippy cup.
What's in
Well,
your mommy's sippy cup? What's in
well,
there?
it's just some eggnog and some ice. It's nothing alcoholic. You know what I mean? Not yet, anyway. So so here we are, another Monday. It's the end of the year.
Mhm.
I'm so excited to have this conversation with you, Joelle. Thank you for coming on and being so willing to come on and share your story, share your motherhood story. I know a lot of people look up to you, and you're doing a lot of admirable things in the fashion world and the business world. And so I think that it's going to be a really great conversation for people to learn another side of you. And yeah, just learn about your motherhood journey. Me specifically, I'm really, really excited because most of the moms that I've had on, our children are a little bit younger.
Yeah.
And I feel like, I don't want to call you like an OG. Like you can kind of really give
I mean,
us.
I am. I got a college student, so
Yes, you have a college student, and I think that there's a perspective that you can definitely give us moms who are still in the like elementary primary phase. So yeah, I think that we got one person one person joining us. So I guess I can get it started. It's about 4:03.
awesome.
So welcome everyone to Mummy Mondays. This is our 7th episode. And I am so happy just to be inside. I'm grateful, first of all, just to be here, healthy, safe. Our kids are safe and thriving. And I just want to, show gratitude and, share my gratitude. It's been a very, very hard year. 2020 has been a whirlwind for a lot of us, and especially parents who have to work and also homeschool, and just it's been a whirlwind of a year just with a double pandemic with COVID-19 and a lot of racial unrest. And so we've had a lot of worries, especially in the Black and Brown community. um, so but I'm just glad to be here and that we're happy and we're safe and we're healthy. So here we are. We're here with Joelle Fontaine, the woman. I'm calling it the woman behind the brand, because a lot of people know her as Creole. I am Creole, but there's a story behind the brand, and she is the woman behind the brand. And I just feel like it's going to be a great conversation. She's going to drop some gems, some motherhood gems, and I'm just excited. So I'm just going to go into quickly how me and Joelle first met. And so we met back in 2000. I had heard about Joelle and Creole for a while, but we actually met in 2017 at the Belle Monique editorial party, where I was one of the models. Yeah, one of the models for May of 2017. And Joelle was the designer for all the models for that editorial party. And it was the Lotus, was it the Lotus?
Collection.
The
Yeah.
Lotus collection. And I was just like, she's dope. She's dope. I don't know if you remember, I think you were going live on your phone, and you said, and you were like getting me dressed, and you're like, I can't talk right now. You take the phone and you like tell the audience what's going on. So I just love your creativity, what you're doing, and just how you're sharing it with other entrepreneurs, other women in the world, and how you make women feel in the clothes that you make. And I know that you'll go more into that as the conversation goes on. So we first met in 2017 at the Belle Monique editorial party, where I wore some of her garments. And then the next year or year and a half, I joined Fairmount Innovation Lab.
Yeah.
And we got we met and got closer on a business, woman to woman. I was actually in a women's group that Joelle was holding with, I think, what was it, like 5 other women
Yeah.
or so, which was, go ahead.
I
feel
was
like
gonna say, you know what the funny thing about it is with you, Lindsey? So when I started that women's group, right, I was kind of like, it was people that were coming to me that were like, I'm starting a business. And I didn't have the time. So I was like, let me just put everybody together, you know, into like one group. But you actually came to me in a dream. Like I literally like dreamt about you being in the group, you know? And so like, I don't know if you remember, the next day I text you, it was like 6 o'clock in the morning.
Yes. I can't forget those early texts, because it's like, woo, like a message from God. You know you've gotten a message from God once you get a text that early. So and it was divine. I think it was divine timing, and it was God, you know. So, and through that relationship, I remember it was my sister's birthday, and I told you about it, and just like randomly, I think it was like later on in that day, you text me and you're like, hey, if you need somebody like to watch Avery because you just like want to go out and, you know, help your sister celebrate, I'll definitely watch him. And I was just like, wow, like I didn't have to ask, I didn't have to, you know, plead. I didn't even like bring anything up to you like that. So I was just like, wow, you know, there's somebody who understands and has been there before. And I really appreciated that. And it really warmed my heart, actually. And really, Mummy Mondays and just really this mummy community, it really forced me to think like, this is really needed. Like the support is needed, the outreach is needed. And sometimes it just takes little things like that for, you know, I really had a good time that day, you know, and that night. And so, and, you know, Avery loves Joelle too.
I love Avery. That's my homie. That is my homie for sure. But that's the thing too, is that like, I think, you know, when I had my son, I was very young and I didn't have anybody that was around my age that had children or understood, you know, so I didn't have anybody that was going to be like, you know, I had my mom, but I also was not in that stage where I was going out like that or anything. So I know what it's like, you know, like you absolutely need that. You need times for yourself to just kind of unwind, to do you, to not be a mommy, to just be Lindsey. Right?
You know, exactly. And I just love when I'm able to really connect with someone without having to say much, you know?
Me too.
And I felt like that connection with us was like that. Because I think we're 2 fellow Virgos.
Yep.
And then just the motherhood piece and the creative piece. And I just loved it. And you're just kind of like, let him run around. I let him run around, let him be. And that kind of gave me a different perspective too, because I was always so like, no, Avery, you have to sit down. Like we're in somebody else's space. And, you know, the fact that you kind of just let him be, let it be. And I'm just like, and he was younger at that time. And it just gave me a different perspective on how I should approach, you know, not discipline per se, but just letting him explore and be himself. And that way that I can learn about him as well. So that you drop some silent gems even by saying that, you know, just let him be and let him run around. So I appreciate that. So that is my long intro of how we met. But I'm just so appreciative for you, and I'm appreciative that you are here. And I'm so ready to dive into more of your story, your motherhood journey. So for the people that don't know you, a lot of people do, but for the people that don't know you, can you just introduce yourself, who you are, what you do, what you've been doing, and what you got going on right now?
Sure. So first of all, thank you for having me. It's exciting, you know, because one of my greatest accomplishment, I always say, is being a mommy. And so like, this is the first time that I've actually had the chance to have a conversation about my motherhood journey. And so it's exciting for me to kind of like dive into it and think about it and share. So thank you for having me on Mommy Mondays. My name is Joelle Fontaine. Like you said, I am the CEO and founder of KREYOL, a woman's high fashion brand. And I am the woman behind the brand. Everybody, like, I'll see people outside, you know, at a store somewhere, and they'll be like, I am KREYOL. I'm like, my name is Joelle.
My name is name.
KREYOL. But that is my brand. And what we do, we're a woman's high fashion brand that really aims to empower women. And so we do that through a number of different ways. We do that through our garments. So like, you know, you're talking about that day when we were doing the editorial party. I'm so happy to hear that we were able to make you feel a kind of a way, to make you feel powerful and bold. That's always like my goal, you know, is to make whatever it is that you're feeling, you put on the garment and it amplifies it. It makes you feel like this superwoman, you know? But beyond that, you know, our work is really, fashion is my avenue to be able to work with women artisans all over the world. So my goal is to provide a platform for artisans to be able to sell their goods. So I'm really into entrepreneurship. I think that, you know, the way to be able to sustain and create the life that you want is through your own artistry. I think we're already born with everything that we need in order to be able to survive, you know. So my aim in life is to be able to help women reach their full potential in maximizing their gift and being able to sustain themselves. And so that's what KREYOL really is. Yeah.
Awesome. It's amazing just how the garments can make you feel, the whole brand, the whole movement. You embody it. You walk around, when you come into a room, you just know, like, that's Joelle, I am KREYOL, like, you know, and that's the kind of vibe of, you know, women that I strive to be around, you know, that have
that's
something.
Who you are. That's the vibe I get when I see you. Absolutely.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. But I know, like, you know, looking at Instagram, especially like with social media and people who really don't know you as a friend outside of the brand, but they just know your brand, they see a lot of, you know, they might think it's like the glitz and the glam. And this is your first time really talking about your motherhood journey. You know what I mean? So how did when you first became a mother, that was really like the spark to your fashion endeavors or avenue? Can you kind of take us back to that beginning place of when KREYOL was first birthed?
Sure, absolutely. So I had Isaiah. I was young. I was 20 years old. I was a baby when I had Zay. And at the time, I was in school for architecture, you know, and that was the only thing I ever wanted to be. Like, I went to a technical school. I did machine drafting for years. So I imagined that I was going to be this powerhouse architect in my high-rise office, you know.
Yeah.
And then I got pregnant.
How it always happens, right?
Such is life, right? And now in retrospect, I can look at it and be like, you know, everything happened exactly as it should have, you know. But at the time, you know, it was like, oh my God, what am I gonna do? My life is over. You know, we always think everything is over, you know. Always. So I had Isaiah when I was 20. I was also married at the time. And I ended up being home with him for 3 years. So I wasn't working. I was home with him, and it was driving me absolutely insane. You know, like, I know, and I say this because I want to really normalize the fact that not every woman is completely ecstatic, you know, about having a baby, a newborn baby, because and I think society makes you feel guilty for that. Society makes you feel like, you know, you should be so happy to have this newborn, and it's a gift, and it is absolutely a gift. Yes. But I have to say that during those first couple of years for me, I loved my son, loved him to death. I definitely thought he was a gift, but it was hard. You know, it was hard being like a young woman, having all of these dreams, these goals, and everything being shifted all at once, and not knowing what the future held for me, you know. And I was also like a busybody, you know, like I was always doing something. I was like, I was like running track, and when I was in high school, running track, a school class president, doing all types of things. So being home with my son was driving me crazy, So what I started to do at that point is I started to take clothes apart and put them back together. So just like dabbling into my artistry, I started first making pillows and curtains. I had my first business was called Earth Tones. I used to sell pillows and curtains, make pillows for all my friends.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I started doing taking clothes apart, putting them back together. And I just started creating garments. And I had a friend at the time, Itasha Jordan, who was also doing her thesis at Pine Manor. She's a photographer. She's actually was named Essence Photographer of the Year last year. So Itasha and I started doing work together, and it just kind of like aligned. She was doing her thesis. So we would always, every single week, we had this commitment where she would come up with a concept and I would create the garments for it. So I didn't exactly know how to sew, but I knew how to put puzzles together. I was creative. I knew how to work a sewing machine, and I would make these garments, so we would make these photo shoots every single week. And then it just kind of happened from there. From Boston, we then started taking trips to New York, doing shoots in New York all of the time. And then when I went back to work after 3 years, I was in work probably for about 6 months. And I got fired because I kept taking time off to go to New York to do shoots. Right?
I'm like, I know that story way too well. Like being a creative and a mom, it's like, can we keep
balance
this
it all, right? Balance it all,
Yeah.
And so the day that I got fired, I'm walking out and I'm like, man, how am I gonna tell my husband at the time, that I just got fired from my job, right? And I get in the car and I turn on the car, and the first thing that starts playing is Jill Scott's Golden. That's playing on the radio. And without thinking about it, it wasn't even a thought in my head. I just called Itasha. I was like, Itasha, we're moving to New York, right? And I go home and I tell my husband, I'm like, hey, yeah, so I'm thinking.
I'm thinking,
and he's like, well, what is crazy.
Yeah.
Right. And he's like, what are you going to do in New York? Like, what's the plan? And as I was talking to him, because obviously I had no plan, right? As I was talking to him, I immediately thought of, at the time, Trace magazine was my favorite magazine. It was a transcultural fashion, a fashion magazine, very well known at the time. And I told him, I was like, I'm going to go work for Trace. And he's like, well, do you know anybody at Trace? Because you don't just get those jobs, right? And so I think that I felt like, I've always felt like if I can see it, I can make it happen. Like if I can visualize it in my head, it's only a matter of time until I make it happen.
Right.
So that night I went, this was when we had dial-up internet, y'all.
Oh yeah.
Yep. I went and I sent this email to if I could find a Trace email, if you were the janitor, you were getting my email. And it basically said they needed me. I sent them pictures of work that I had done, editorials, and I was like, y'all need me. I love y'all. Y'all will love me too. Right? So
that was a good approach. That was a real confident approach. And sometimes that's how you have to do it. Like just leave it all.
How I did it. A month later, we were living in New York and I was working at Trace. So
there you go. You're like, oh, but see, I do get those types of jobs.
Exactly. And I think that, there's so many things. There are positive and there are negatives to that story. You know what I'm saying? Like there are positives and negatives to that story. And I always believe, and my whole goal in life is, like I said, is to allow women to see that they can create the life that they want for themselves. Like if you can see it, if you can visualize it, you can make it happen. It really boils down to, you know, your confidence level and how much you trust God. You know what I mean? Like how much you trust God to really move the earth for you. And if you really believe that you like it's for you, you know? So like for me, I didn't see how it was gonna happen, but you know, I knew that it was gonna happen. But then the other flip side of that is that when it did happen, you know, because I lived in New York for about a year off and on, well, a year on where I was doing like back and forth, where I would come home on the weekends or be home for a bit, go back to New York and just do the whole back and forth thing. And that was hard. You know, like that was very difficult as a mom, as a wife, that was very difficult because it also felt like, although I was in New York and I want to say by month 3, KREYOL was already in like museums, we were getting awards, but I could not enjoy it. You know what I mean? Like it didn't feel right to me because Isaiah would have a fever and I wouldn't be there. You know what I'm saying? I wasn't there for like, you know, my husband or whatever the case may be. So it was this, and then there were times where he was sick and I'd have to like leave a job, you know what I mean? Leave something that's really important, hop on the phone at the time and rush home. So it felt like this balancing act that I could never really keep up with. So, you know, it's really kind of like understanding too, like what's really valuable to you, you know, and when too, because it's all about timing, right? Timing is huge. And I think oftentimes we think we have to do everything at one time, but we have so much time, you know, to make it happen. Yeah.
I have a question about that because I was going to ask you, like, was there any mom guilt during the time? As I knew there,
Absolutely.
you know, there was, because at that time he was pretty young, right?
He had just started preschool, so he was like 3, 4. Yeah.
Yeah. But in hindsight, like looking back, and because that was the beginning stages to like, you know, where you are now, would you do anything differently for that?
No.
No.
No. And I think that I've gone back and forth about that. You know what I mean? Like I think that there's been times where I've like, I should have been, you know, a better wife. I should have, you know, stayed home. I should have done this. I should have done that. You know what? Isaiah doesn't even remember that I was gone. Okay. He does not remember that year at all. I'm like, Zay, you don't remember when I used to live? He's like, no. He's like, you were always there. I'm like, okay, word.
Right. That's all that matters.
But I have to say, like I said, I've gone back and forth. One thing that I have learned as I've gone through life is everything happens exactly as it should. You know what I mean? And everything happens for a reason. And when you really focus on the shame, right? Like because when you're living in regret, it's really has to do with shame, right? Like where you felt as if there could have been a different outcome if you had done something different. But the reality of it is, when I look at Isaiah and how well adjusted, how wonderful of a child he is, I have no qualms about how things turned out, or you know what I mean. Like I'm there's no shame there. I mean, so there's no regret on that end at all. And also, like even now, like I just did a relaunch for my business,
Yes.
and some of the people that I met in New York, you know, that I connected with through Trace, there are people who are now like editors at Vogue, and you know what I mean? So it's stuff that like you can't make this stuff up. Like everything happens for an exact reason. So no, there are no regrets there.
Awesome. I'm glad to hear that, because I think just how we were talking about, like every mom needs that like space for themselves. And I think that's even more important for creatives too. Like we need that outlet. Like we need to be creative. Yeah. We can't just keep doing the same things over and over because it becomes mundane. And I know for me, and I'm pretty sure it's like this for you, like your creativity is it's a part of you, a part of who you are and how you function in the world. So if you're just, being at home and that's driving you crazy, you kind of needed that to rebirth yourself, really,
Yeah.
and that
Yeah.
confidence. So I'm so glad that you said that you didn't regret it, because
Mhm.
at times things can look so bad at the time,
Yeah.
when you're going through it. But when you look back in hindsight, you're like, if I hadn't made that sacrifice, if I hadn't gone, like, I would have lost part of myself.
Yeah.
And then I wouldn't have a foundation for me and my son right now. Like, you know what I mean? If you had it, like, maybe you wouldn't be as far as you are right now, you know?
Absolutely. And I think that's like one of the major things. Everything that I do in my life is for Isaiah. You know, like even as it boils down to KREYOL, and even like separating from his dad, really, it's for Isaiah. It's really for him to, because I'm and you know me, Lindsey, I don't half-ass anything. You know what I mean? Like I just cannot. So for me, it really is, it's all or nothing. And I want him to understand that, like, as it pertains to life, right? Like you can have everything. Like you have to really be honest with yourself, with your own heart, and go for it. You know what I'm saying? Like go for yours. And I want to be like, everything that I do for KREYOL is really for him to see that, you don't have to necessarily go the traditional way. If you want to go to the traditional way, that's great too. But you know what I mean? Like whatever you can dream up in your mind, you can become, and my mom used to say that to me as well. In I think most of our parents say that, but oftentimes we think of it in theory, and so I want to be like to actualize it so that he can see it plainly. He sees the hard work, you know so as like we're growing and as like we're getting there, I want him to really be able to bask in that, and to learn from it, learn from it so that he becomes fearless, so that
Mm-hmm.
he really pushes himself to his limits to be his best self.
For sure. And I see that now with him. And well, the next question after this question, we'll get into
Mhm.
Isaiah and how he's grown up to be such a lovely young man. So I wanted to take us back to like one of your most challenging times. I know you talked about, being at home and that was driving you crazy, but can you kind of like paint the picture for us and bring us to a moment where you were just like, this is really challenging right now? As far as, being a mom and trying to juggle everything you were trying to, or maybe it was just being a mom. I don't know.
Yeah.
Can you take us there?
Sure. I think I've had many challenging times. But I think one of my most challenging times was when I separated from Isaiah's dad. I think that was one of the most challenging times for me because so I got married. I got married at 20. I had been in relationships probably since I was 12 years old. So I had always had like a partner, someone in my life. I did not have like, I didn't have like my own, I didn't have my own life. Let's just say that, right? Like I didn't really have my own life. I didn't have like what I would consider like a strong like friendship support system. I have a couple of friends here and there, but I wasn't like, I wasn't nurturing relationships with women. I didn't have my own money. I was like literally starting from scratch, and that was a decision that I made. But it was a hard decision. There were times where I wasn't able to have Isaiah living with me because I wasn't financially stable enough to, to have him with me. So that was a really hard time.
Yeah.
Just starting over. You know what I mean? Starting over. But it was also really a rewarding time because I had never really known what my voice sounded like. You know what I mean? Like, and even like after that, like, I had a couple of relationships after that where, I'm like, and I'm single, and happily single. But this is the first time where, like that I actually can be like, okay, I like this, right? Like I like this kind of music, or I like my eggs this way in the morning, or you know what I mean? Whereas you were when you're always influenced by somebody else, you kind of just adopt, right?
Yeah.
You assimilate, you adjust to whatever other people, whatever the environment is.
Right.
So it was a hard time, but also a really rewarding time, to start over, to really get to know myself. I feel like I am finally, I'm 40 years old.
It's kind of slowing down a little bit.
And I'm finally.
Joelle, I don't know. I think you're frozen.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now and I can see you now. It was like slow mo. So it was literally like the slow mode. So we'll do that. We'll do that. I get where I last left off. What I heard was, you had really found your own voice. Like, when, you had made that switch from just adapting, to your environment and just going along, but actually really choosing yourself.
Yes. So yeah. So it was a hard time, but extremely rewarding. Extremely rewarding. I feel like I'm finally, in a space where I can pour into others. I'm not at a deficit. Where because you can't sustain anything if you're at a deficit. Where I actually know how to pour into myself so that I can be a benefit to others. So yeah.
Awesome. I thank you for sharing that too. I think a lot of times as moms, we can talk a lot about our children, but a lot, especially like with our mental health and self-identity, that comes like with the heartbreak of relationships.
Yeah.
And heartbreak or just a relationship experiences, especially with if you're the parents or if you're the dad or the mom and you guys have been in some type of relationship in order to have a child together, and when that doesn't work out for whatever reason, it takes a toll. It takes a toll on how you view life, how you look at yourself, and how you move forward. So I thank you for kind of giving us a little snapshot of like that challenging time and what that looks like, because not a lot of people talk about that.
Yeah.
And then we talk about like the kids and like the trouble that we're having with the kids, and but and not to talk about relationships as hey, this was just like a real bad, or to bad talk the other parent, but it's just the realities of how we are as humans. Like that relationships and the heartbreak, it really does take a toll, and it does affect how you mother, and how you look at yourself and move forward. So I really thank you for that little snapshot of that. So
I want to add something, Lindsey.
Go ahead, please.
Also, because and I wanted just a snippet on the relationship. A lot of the reason, because I said a lot of things that I do, is for Isaiah. And a lot of the reason why I left the relationship was for Isaiah too, because I wanted him to have really two happy, whole parents. And I think it's really important. It's really important to like, in my ex-husband is a great man, like awesome man, no problems, like in terms of like him as a person or the relationship itself. But it wasn't it, right? And I think it's really important to know, like, to understand the seasons, right? To understand the seasons of like how people are here for a season, they may not be there forever. And to be able to love someone enough to let them go. You know what I mean? Like, and I think that was like the major thing for me. I really wanted Isaiah to like have parents that were happy and to know what it was like really to be in love, you know? And my ex-husband is getting married, right? And it's so exciting, and it's funny because he probably would be like, what the hell? But it's so exciting. It's so exciting to see him. Like, I knew that he was going to marry her when the first time like I saw him, I walked into the kitchen and he was just different, right? It was just different, and different people bring out different things in you. You know what I'm saying? And so like, I knew that it was the right decision to leave the relationship when I saw him happy. You know, because why would you hold somebody hostage, right? Why would you hold somebody hostage that really, you know, isn't for you? It wasn't anything about him or I or whatever. You know what I mean? Like we create a great life together. We have a wonderful son. We have great, like our families are intertwined. You know, we're friends. We're good people. You know what I mean? But it's so exciting to see him happy and see him in love. You know, and I think that that's something that we don't oftentimes think about when we're holding people hostage, right? like we deserve and we deserve to have that. Everybody deserves to have like that love. Absolutely.
Yeah. That's a word. That's a word right there. You knew to let go when you saw him happy.
Yeah.
And it goes back to what you said, which is the foundational thing, which is it's for Isaiah. You want Isaiah to see his parents happy and whole.
Yes.
And so when you identified that, you removed yourself from the equation, not because you didn't love him or that he's a bad person. It's just that you wanted him to be happy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is a great and selfless thing as well, because so many people are like, it's me, even though I know you're not happy and I'm really not happy. We're just gonna, you know, what I can get from this, you know?
I'm not for that life. And I think like, you know, I'm Haitian, and Haitian culture and Caribbean, like the diaspora, you know, and especially if you're, you know, if you're religious. You know, it's all about like, you got to stay together forever, even if you're happy, even if the person is beating you, even like, you know what I mean? And no, I'm a very spiritual woman, you know, and it doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way, you know?
No, for sure. So thank you for that too. Thank you for expounding on that as well. That was great. That was a word. Let people go.
Yep. Stop holding you hostage.
Right. Not holding you hostage, and just accepting accepting different seasons.
Exactly. And I think that's love. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's love. I think love really is about like allowing life to flow as it should and not controlling it. You know what I mean? So yeah.
For sure. Let's talk a little bit about Isaiah. He is now, what, 18, 19? How
19, girl.
19, almost 20. So you were 20 when you had him.
Yep.
20. Like, how does that feel?
It feels amazing, actually. It really does. Because I remember, you know what? I remember having Isaiah and thinking to myself, you know, when he's 20, I'm gonna be 40. We're gonna be able to go to clubs together.
Right.
I'm never going to a club with my son. Let's just say that right now. But it's really cool. It's really cool because I feel like essentially Isaiah and I grew up together, you know, because if I look at Isaiah, you know, at 19 and I'm like, man, I was 20 when I had him, and Isaiah is a baby, right? Like, you know what I mean? And so I'm like, it's so interesting too, because I think that Black women especially, you know, we grow up so fast, you know, and we're not really allowed to be, because I'm looking at Isaiah, I'm like, Isaiah, you are a child. So, and I think about it, and I'm like, Joelle, you were 20 when you had Isaiah. You were a child, right? Like legit, you were a child, you know? Yeah. but we're just like, we grow up so fast. There's so many responsibilities. Like I feel like I was probably a grown up all my entire life, so it's really interesting the way that Black women grow up versus anybody else, actually. Not just like Black men, but like, their white counterparts as well. That's a lot of reason why I say to you, when you said, that I said to you, let Avery run around. Yeah, let him run around. Like, why not? He's a kid. And then we oftentimes are like, as when we're young, like as we're trying to control these young kids, like, sit down, do this, do that, where they're not really allowed to be the free spirits that they are. And that really changes the trajectory of their life. It changes the way that they grow up, the way that they present themselves in the world, and then they lose their innocence in a sense, so, for me, now that Isaiah, is about to be 20, is grown, it's been an exciting time because now every stage has been great. Every stage has had its different thing. But now we're friends, like we're homies.
Awesome.
It's
amazing.
Go ahead.
No, sorry, it's so amazing. He's on the chat too, and he's like, "I'm married." He's like, "Hi." So I wanted just to shout him out. Hi, Zay.
Hi, Zay.
Yeah, it's just seeing you guys when he comes around. It's just so delightful to see. And he's such a combination of his dad and you. His physical, features, and it's just great. I see a lot of your hustle, your dedication, your grind to the mission of Kreeyol, and like, how you want to transform lives. I see, he doesn't have to say much to know that, like, that's instilled in him. Like, I even hear that when he like speaks kind of softly, but I love that. Like, I love men who speak softly, because I don't know, it shows like certain amount of like compassion, and that they're also listening as well, because you have a lot of men who are like dominant. I'm loud, I got all this vibration in my voice, but it's just like you really feel like when he approaches you with a conversation, he really has something to say. Like, he really has something to say, and it's profound, or that he's really deeply listening. And so kudos to you for that, because I can pick that up in my interactions with you, Zay. I can talk to you since you're on the chat, but so kudos to you for that, Joelle. I also wanted to, it's on the flyer, that, and you said it in your voiceover in the video, that, you really feel like you believe that, your son, Isaiah, saved your life. So can you talk a little bit about that? How did he save your life?
I would say because I was a completely different person before Isaiah, and I think that when I had him, one of the major things for me was like, okay, Joe, you're crazy, you're irresponsible, you're an artist. Like literally, I'm like the person who, like, if I have a job, I go to a job, and I've done this, where I don't like the job, I don't like the way they talk to me, I go to lunch and I don't come back. Like,
I think we have some similarities there.
I'm like, it was one of those things where, like, I was also like, I'm a true artist, right? Like, I'm a true artist where I sing, I dance, I paint, I do everything. I remember my uncle sitting me down, I think I was like 18, 19, and him being like, Joe, you could really do anything you put your mind to. He said, but you gotta choose one. Like you gotta choose one thing at a time. He's like, because you're all over the place. You're just kind of like bouncing off the walls. And that was true. That was true. And Isaiah grounded me, because one of the things, and you know this about me, Lindsey, where everything that I do, like if I'm going to put in effort, I'm going to put in 100% of my effort, and so Isaiah, for me, I was like, okay, now I'm not like by myself. This is somebody that like, this is a gift that God has given me. I cannot mess him up. Like my fear, my greatest fear, and I still say this to Isaiah. I think last week I said to him, I said, listen, if you have to go to therapy for anything that I have done, I will pay for it. Like, I was like, I tried my best. Like, but
that's real. We're not perfect.
real. We're not perfect. But my greatest fear was messing him up. Like, you know, because I recognize that, you know, as his mom, anything, you know, any kind of trauma that I had that was unhealed, any kind of shortcomings that I had was going to be transmitted over to him. And I didn't want that, you know. So when I got pregnant with Isaiah, I read so many books. So many books. Like I like everything I did. Like we had in our house, we had like what are those things called? Index cards everywhere. Okay, where I'm like, okay, Isaiah was reading. Isaiah was reading at like a kindergarten level by the time he was 3. You know, it's like I spent a lot of time with him, a lot of time just pouring into him. And still to this day, because one of the things that I really wanted him to be able to do is express, you know, because I think within our culture,
Yes.
We don't know how to express, you know, like our parents didn't know how to express unless it was like anger, you know, or frustration,
discipline,
discipline.
you know, or telling you what you need
Exactly.
to do.
Exactly. And I always wanted to listen to him, you know, like I wanted him to have his own voice where he felt comfortable enough to be able to be like, you know, I am hurting because, you know, like I feel bad because, or I feel happy because, and not just like, you know, just being able to feel the emotion, name the emotion, but then also not be a slave to the emotion. You know what I mean? Like also have like coping mechanisms where, you know, like if he's having a hard time to be able to get through it, you know. So Isaiah and I have been talking. We've been talking about like important stuff like since he was born. You know, I started talking to Isaiah about sex when he was 7. Right? But yeah, you know, but like every stage, you know, he has also allowed me to elevate to the next level of me, you know. So like I had, in order for me to be, you know, in order for me to really focus on him and to be what, you know, I felt like he needed, I needed to become a different version of me along the way as well. And so like that's why I say he saved me, you know, because I think that there are points in my life where I was very like about me. You know what I mean? Like I was very like, you know, like the world revolves around me, you know, and you know, my feelings, I'm so hurt, I'm so this, like whatever. But not just about Isaiah, but I recognize that like, you know, we all have a purpose in this life, you know, like a God-given ordained purpose in this life that really doesn't have much to do with you, right? As much as we hate to admit it, like, you know, as much as we hate to admit it, you know, and we live in a society where everything does, you know, revolves around us. Like we live in a bubble, you know, but like he has taught me that, you know, like we have a greater purpose. You know, we have like there's so many people basically beyond Isaiah, you know, whether it's like my siblings or people who are close to me or people that follow me because of KREYOL or whatever. There are so many people that I'm able to influence, you know, so utilizing that for good and being able to really, you know, value that and take advantage of that as well, you know, able to take advantage of my voice, you know. So yeah, he definitely helped me to become the best version of myself.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And I see that. I see that. It's all true. So you know, if there's moms tuning in right now and watching the replay, you know, especially any mom, so you can answer this generally and then more specifically. So what advice would you give a mom who is working, trying to climb in her career, or has a full-blown business, just starting a business, maybe working a 9 to 5 and doing the side hustle, whatever that makeup may look like for them, and they have a baby, a child. What is the advice that you would give them?
The advice that I would give is take your time. I would say take your time, because so your child, your child's whole personality is developed by the time they're 3 years old. So in you then have so much time to climb the corporate ladder, to build your business, to be this power woman, to be all of that, to be all of the above. Um, like I said, I don't have any regrets.
Right.
But there were times where, I did struggle trying to do the back and forth with Isaiah and, living in New York and all of that. What I come to realize now is that everything happens in its own timing. Sometimes when we're really pushing, like we're trying to get somewhere fast, you have to question, you have to ask yourself, like, what's the rush? You know what I'm saying? Like, why, like, what is the actual motive behind, like, is it, to make yourself feel better? Is it your own personal ego? You know what I mean? That you're trying to feed so that you can feel as if like you're worthy, right? As if you're worthy, or if you're worth something, So I think there's two things. I would say always continue to do your work, so like don't leave pieces out of yourself out, So always continue to do the work. So if you're doing a 9 to 5, you have a child, you're also trying to push out a business, like understand how to prioritize. You don't have to do everything all at once. Maybe you're devoting 2 hours a week, where somebody can take your child and you're devoting 2 hours a week to your business. Maybe you're able to do a whole day. Maybe you're able to do a whole Saturday or whatever. I would say have that consistent time, but understand also that like baby steps, slow movement is still movement. You don't have to do everything at once. I think oftentimes we get super frustrated that things are not moving as fast as we want them to be. But your child will only be a child for so long.
Right.
And so like, you know what I mean? So it's like, it's important to really value that time to pour into them as much as possible. Because you're the only one. Like I think about now, like as an adult, I'm going back to like childhood traumas and learning all these things about myself. And I'm just like, oh my God. Like,
Scares you like, wow, every day you're unpacking something.
Dude, but all of those things, not to say that you can avoid everything.
Right.
There are things that you just cannot avoid. But when we have children, we're no longer by ourselves. Like, yes, you should always, you absolutely have to make sure that you're doing your self-care time. And I say self-care time daily. That is not something that can wait for once a week.
It's necessary.
It's absolutely necessary for you to even be able to be a functioning adult. You know what I mean? To be loving enough, caring enough, whole enough to be able to pour out into your family, your people at your job, all of that. So self-care time is absolutely important. If you're running a business, you need to have that consistent time. But your number one priority as a mom is your child. Right after, you got God, you got your child, right? And there's enough time. There is enough time to do everything that you need to do. It's just really figuring out how to organize it.
Yeah. Yes. That is amazing. And I know that other moms are appreciative. I'm appreciative of that advice as well. Just to, everything happens in its rightful timing and in God's timing, and everything happens for a reason. There's really nowhere to rush to, really. And for me personally, I remember I was in that space of where I was like, I'm not doing enough. I'm not doing enough. There's not enough like results. And it's just like, Lindsey, you're a new mother. This is the first time that you're doing this. And he's still very young. And at that time, he was very, very young. And I really had to change my mindset and say, hey, it's a little bit delayed, not happening when I wanted it to, but it's not denied. And my efforts have to go into being present for him right now. So if I'm home right now, if I'm not like the big boss, you know, in my career right now, like I wanted making the big bucks, you know, I have to be present right now where I am with him.
Yeah.
And that's just really, and now that I look back at it, I hated it at first. I was just like, I have all this time on my hands. I need to be working. I need to go. And I felt like God was just like, no, this is the time where you need to be putting into your child, learning him, learning what he likes, learning what he doesn't like, learning how he communicates. And now when I look back at it, I was just like, that time was definitely needed. So I really appreciate that advice of just, you don't have to speed. You don't.
It's such a, like, having a child is such a great responsibility. You know what I mean? Like, I think about it all the time. Like, you know, if I had stayed in New York and let's say I became a big designer or whatever, but then my child was completely, you know, maladjusted. You know what I'm saying? Like, like what? And I think that that's like, for me, I'm like, that's how you should look at it. Like, gauge it in that way. You know, look at your children. You know, like, are your children happy? That should be like your number one goal. Are your children happy? Are you happy? What do you need to do to make yourself happy? You know, because the business, the, you know, the next degree, the career or whatever, nothing is going to be enough to make you happy. That's not where true happiness comes from. So really it's like figuring out like what actually makes you happy. And all those things, like, those are additions. You know, once you realize like the priorities in life, like what life is really about, you know, then those are additions. They're great to come by, but it's not a race. You know, it's not like an end all and be all.
Right.
Your identity.
Exactly. I think that's some really solid, great advice, just to slow down and take it. And, you know, you being a mom, that's a God-given assignment within itself. So just, you know, it'll all happen in its timing. So we are about at almost 5:00 now. And so I want to be respectful of your time, of everyone's time, you know, tuning in. But I really wanted you, I know we touched on it just a little bit, but you know, how 2020 has just been a hard year all around. And you're one of the first, or maybe the second, moms where your only son is 19. He's in the teens, you know, about to be 20. And everything that has been happening in our communities, globally, internationally, you know, the presidential campaign, just everything has been crazy. How do you feel your motherhood and your guidance has prepared Isaiah to navigate through this time? I know that you did a project, the Black Lives Matter project down in Nubian Square. He got some footage of that, or did a story, or covered it. Can you talk a little bit about this time and kind of just how you saw your motherhood journey come full circle this year?
Like you said, it's been a hard year for sure. You know, I think what I've seen, and this is not just like from my motherhood, but I think as his parents, for both myself and Isaiah's dad, I think that as he's been navigating this, you know, so one thing you should know is that Isaiah's a very sheltered kid, right? You know, Isaiah's very sheltered. He's very, I would say that he's in a world that's very safe. He has two families that, you know, he is the only grandchild on both sides, only nephew on both sides. He has two families that love him dearly. So like when he moved into college, his college dorm, we all went, right? I I know his roommates were like, "What in the world is
It was
happening?"
literally a whole village in there. I remember those
The
pictures.
whole village. So Isaiah he's very safe. And so, seeing all of this transpire, I think has shaking him a bit but also has made him really curious, about the world, really curious about, racial relations and learning more. What has been great is that I find that he's more open, like he comes to me, he comes to his dad. He asks the questions. He's open to have the conversations. He's open to learning more. And so that's really been interesting. Like he went to his like first protest this year. That was scary for me. That was really scary for me
It's scary for me too.
Absolutely, absolutely. But I'm also really excited that that's igniting in him. That he's seeking to learn more, that he's becoming more passionate about the world, and really coming out of his shell. So yeah, it's been interesting. It's been interesting to see.
That's awesome. Well, he says he's super blessed. That's what he put in the chat. So yes, you are. And you're blessed to have the parents and the mom that you have. So if there's any lasting thing that you want to say just about your journey before we get into like the real closeout, I welcome you to do that, Joelle.
What's the last thing that I want to say? The last thing is always so much pressure.
Like, well, the last thing I'll have you shout, the last thing I'll have you shout out, because your stuff was in Bloomingdale's, your latest collection. So I want you to definitely talk about that. And so for people, this is the last week before Christmas. Christmas is Friday, so people can still go on the site and buy.
Shop. You're not gonna do it for Christmas. I don't know, but unless you're in Boston, then I don't mind. I don't mind actually dropping off. But I am KREYOL.com. But one of the last things I want to say is what I really hope to accomplish in this life is to be a great ancestor, right? I think that and especially I think in the last few months, actually during COVID, I've really been on this spiritual journey, and I recognize that the reason why I am standing and a lot of the alignment that I have with God has to do with my grandmother's prayers, my great grandmother's prayers. I was very young when I started having visions of me in rooms full of women praying, for like the next generation and all of that. And so for me, my goal really is to be able to, for Isaiah's great grandchildren, that my prayers, the way that whoever's prayers, because there's some strong prayers covering me, girl.
Me too. Me too. There is power in that spiritual lineage.
Yes,
for sure.
Yeah. So the same way that somebody covered me, I hope to be that for the next generations to come. And so like, as I think as women, as mothers, we have so much power in it's understanding our identity, it's understanding who we are, and not get lost. I think we oftentimes get lost in the day-to-day, you know what I mean? Like paying the bills, having a problem with the boyfriend or the husband or whatever, the day-to-day, climbing the corporate ladder, like those things that are really they're really,
they're really minuscule.
They're really minuscule when it comes down to what your real purpose is, and they're distracting. They're really distracting to why we're actually here. So that's why I think that, I think for me, that's why I gravitate towards women, because I know women have so much power and hold so much in their hands. So the idea of understanding who you are, knowing your identity, you're then able to pour out into so many different generations. So like my goal is really to be that, like a great ancestor, someone else, as a mom, and even as women who are not mothers, like you are, you know what I mean? Like you are a mother to someone, to something.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. For sure. Oh, that was a great answer. You lived up to the pressure, girl, because
My Lord.
that was a great answer. That might be my highlight clip for this. All right. It's been a pleasure learning more. I knew a little bit, about your motherhood journey, but it's been a pleasure just really um, getting a peek inside the story, the motherhood journey behind the brand. So I really appreciate you for being so transparent and so open and just
Thank
willing
you.
to share you're already sharing your gift of creativity and through your business, but just really sharing your story as a mom, because I know that there's a lot of me being one myself, being very ambitious and focused on where how I want my life to feel, how I
Yeah.
want my life to be. That's where it's kind of like the mindset shift has happened. When
Yeah.
I first had Avery, it was like, well, how much money do I want to be making? How, like, I have to do it. I have to do it. And through slowing down, it's just like, well, how do I want to feel? How do I want Avery to feel? Do I want him to be feeling anxiety and rushed? And I even say, even for the pandemic, and that's why I'm so grateful that we're healthy, is like right before the pandemic hit, like I was just kind of tired. I was like, you know what? I'm tired of taking him back and forth. And I just I kind of need a break. So this was like the pandemic for me was a blessing in disguise. I feel like it was answered prayer
Yeah.
from God that I'm able to spend more time with him, more like intentional time.
Yes.
As he's getting older. And so yeah, I'm just grateful. I'm just grateful. And I'm just grateful for this time that, Mommy Mondays was even born. And so that I could have you on and hear more about your story. And I'm so glad that everybody else tuning in, Tiffany Magnum is tuning in, one of our past special mommy guests. And yeah, she said she got hers. I think she's talking about her mask or something.
Oh, she got her dress. You made a
Yes.
dress for her.
Oh, nice. I can't wait to see you in it, Tiff. So I just want to give you this time to talk about your collection a little bit. You were in Bloomingdale's for
Yes.
the month of November, which is huge. It's huge. I'm so proud of you for that. And tell the people where they can find you.
Sure.
And now that everybody knows your name, it's Joelle Fontaine.
Joelle.
I am Creole.
I am Creole. But yeah, we just in November 2nd we relaunched the business. I took some time off. I took about 2 years off, a year and a half, 2 years off, because when I started KREYOL, I really wanted it to be I didn't start KREYOL because I wanted to be an amazing fashion designer. I really wanted it to be used for what I wanted, which is like to empower women. And so I really needed to take the time to do like the background work, and to do some work on myself as well, because literally entrepreneurship is a personal development journey.
Yes.
So just really, really learning more about myself and strengthening myself to be able to run this business. But November 2nd, we launched an artisan collection. So we are partnering with Haiti Design Co., who works with a number of artisans in Haiti to do accessories, so leather goods. So I'm actually wearing, these are like some leather earrings. I don't know if you guys
bring them up a little closer.
Let me see. All right. And this is also, it's made out of bone. I love their stuff. So we're partnering with them to do all of our accessories for the collection this season. And then we also have a partnership with Beyond Borders. And they are a family out of Ecuador that make these amazing blankets. I wish you told me you were going to do this. I would have had a blanket.
Oh, I know. I'm sorry.
No worries. But you guys can go to iamkreyol.com. That's IAMKREYOL.com and shop. We also, so all of our garments are this season, we're trying out something new. And this was due to COVID, because a lot of our work is custom. So we meet with people one-on-one, take their measurements, create a garment for them. So we're trying this new, this new system now of like, of doing custom online. So we don't do it. We're really about like sustainability, zero waste. So we don't sit on inventory. When you order a garment, we are then creating the garment. So it takes about 30 days. It's not fast fashion. This is not H&M, right? Just a disclaimer, but it is like, you think about, like, back in the day when our parents used to get garments made specifically for them, it's that kind of service, it's that kind of exclusivity, but it's not as expensive. It's definitely at a discounted price. So what we do is when you order the garment, we send you an email that has a video of how to take your measurements, you input your measurements, and then we get to it. And it takes about 30 days for you to receive your garment. So please go online, check us out. And then my goal is to, by the end of next year, to have 10 artisans, so we're gonna keep on growing, getting more artisans, so yeah.
Awesome. Well, I'll have this playback. I really wanted, I was thinking about having you have some of your, I knew you was going to wear something, but I was thinking about even having you have like your blankets and stuff like that. But I was just like, I feel like that might take it off of like the motherhood talk, because I know how I can get what I can do, because there's always post-production. You talked about the stuff. I could just take the video and then we can do that. So I'm excited for that. And I'm just excited that you were able to join me today.
Thank you for having me, Lindsey. Thank you so much. I came on and I told you I was like running around all day today. I was actually in the car with Isaiah, and then he had me stop at Barnes and Nobles knowing I was late, right? And I'm like, you're stressing me out. But I had my tea. This was a good conversation. Thank you so much.
It was. And I'm happy to go back and hear the gems that you dropped throughout the hour. So I thank you for sharing this space with me. And hopefully we see each other before the year closes out.
I know. It's been so long, Lindsey. Like, seriously.
It has. We've been doing the virtual thing, but we gotta actually see each other and be tangible.
I know. One thing I do miss about, before COVID, I don't know if we're ever gonna get there again, but I miss hugs, man.
I know. I really miss hugs too. And I'm that kind of person where I'm just like a touchy person. So when COVID started, I was just like, oh, and people are like, and I was like, oh yeah.
Like elbow.
It's still getting used to it. But I thank you so much. And we're gonna get on out of here.
All right. Thank you so much for having me. Have a wonderful holiday season if I don't see you.
You as well.
And give Avery a big hug for me.
I will. I definitely will. All right, y'all. See you later.
Bye. Bye, guys.
Bye.